blow things up and Americans come out bloody and dying, the uproar is going to be crazy, and Trump's going to go stop. And the military is going to say, we warned you. We told you what's going to happen. And now you're stopping it, and that's the defeat. That's what's going to happen. There will be no... And so I don't believe this is a serious plan. Who's going to invest in it? Look at the stupidity of what he said.
Donald Trump and his meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu that shook the world after comments that he made. Here is just one of the comments he had during his time with Benjamin Netanyahu. We're just going to take a listen to his Gaza takeover plan. Here it is.
The only reason the Palestinians want to go back to Gaza is they have no alternative. It's right now a demolition site. This is just a demolition site. Virtually every building is down. They're living under fallen concrete that's very dangerous and very precarious. They instead can occupy all of a beautiful area with homes and safety, and they can live out their lives in peace and harmony instead of having to go back and do it again. The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it too. We'll own it and be responsible for dismantling all of the dangerous unexploded bombs and other weapons on the site, level the site and get rid of the destroyed buildings, level it out, create an economic development that will supply unlimited numbers of jobs and housing for the people of the area. Do a real job, do something different, just can't go back.
So I wanted to just play that before I play the next clip. I'll kick it to you first, Scott. Talk about these comments in the context of both the geopolitical reality here and what we've actually just witnessed over the last 15 months. And, we're in the middle of a ceasefire. Benjamin Netanyahu comes to Washington, and then suddenly Trump makes these comments, which seem to they've not only shocked the world because this is literal ethnic cleansing being proposed, but it comes on the heels of a ceasefire, which has causes to it. And I'm curious if you would talk about the realities behind the spin here.
Well, gee, thanks. Danny, I think everybody agrees on at face value, what Trump said is so unrealistic as to be unbelievable. That you can't believe that a rational actor would give voice to literal ethnic cleansing. The theft of land. Never once did he talk about the ownership of the land that belongs not to the United States, not to Israel, but to the people of Palestine, the Gazan people. So this would be theft on an unimaginable scale. There's no congressional support for this. I mean, the president, what he could just go around and just designate territories around the world. He's not a king. He's not an emperor. He's a president. So when I looked at this, when I first heard this, I don't know if people read my Twitter. I was up all night. I couldn't sleep because it was just like, this is so ridiculous. And so I was just banging out, criticism of this. But at some point in time, as an analyst, you got to step back and go, what really is going on here? Because you've got to look at rational, explanations for this. And I don't know if there is a rational explanation, but I'll put it this way. You mentioned 15 months of fighting. Israel was at war with Hamas for 15 months. Israel tried to take over Gaza for 15 months. Israel got their asses handed to them by Hamas for 15 months, and Israel withdrew from Gaza under pressure because their military could no longer sustain the fight. And I bring that up because if you're Donald Trump and you're becoming president and your goal and objective is to create Middle East peace, that's what he says it is. And you're looking at the Gaza problem, and now you're bringing Netanyahu over to talk about the Gaza problem, one would logically think, and most presidents would say, what's Israel's plan? But the fact is Israel doesn't have a plan, not a plan at all. And into this vacuum steps Donald Trump with a plan so audacious, so ridiculous, so absurd that it can't be ignored. if you saw Netanyahu, and the thing that got me thinking this way is just watching Netanyahu's body language. He was not happy about any of this. This is a man who is gripping the podium, looking at the president almost, just going, what the hell is he talking about here? He was insulted. He's the prime minister of Israel, being told by the president of the United States on national TV, the whole world watching, that he's incompetent. He can't do the job. He can't finish the job. I, Donald Trump, am going to do the job. Now you'll say, but is Donald Trump's solution a solution? Of course not. On the face of it, not. But who is Donald Trump? Again, Ray's the one who taught me to think like this, to dig a little bit deeper. Donald Trump's not a diplomat. He's not a statesman. He's a New York State real estate businessman. And when you sit down with a real estate businessman in New York to talk business, somebody puts an offer on the table. The people that say no are kicked out of the room. You're not part of the game anymore. He's looking for a counter offer. And I think that's because this is so ridiculous, so illegal, so impossible. It's literally impossible for him to do what he says he's doing. He can't do it. He's put an offer out there, and he's challenging the people not just to say no, but to say, hey, no, this is so crazy. We got to come up with something, because there has been no solution to Gaza. This is my guess. I'm just guessing. I'm spitballing because it's the only thing that allows me to believe that there's sanity in the White House. Because if I'm wrong on this and Donald Trump actually believes he can do this, then we are literally being governed by a madman, by an insane man who is dangerous, not just for the world, but for the American people. And it's something that we have to reflect on. I don't want to believe that that's the case right now. So I'm going with, parsing this out, thinking that Donald Trump is simply look, this is a man, you know how he opened up his gambit for North Korean dialogue. Rocket Man, fire and fury. I'm going to nuke the Korean Peninsula, take them all down. Next thing you know, he's walking across the DMZ, shaking hands with Kim Jong-un. How did you get from A to Z? He's a man of extremes. And so I'm just hoping that this is just a case of Donald Trump challenging the world to come up with a different solution. If you don't want this to happen, because Trump has literally told the Israelis, you're no longer the solution. You are the problem. And he cut them right out. There is no Israel. Did you notice that? Where did Israel fit in Donald Trump's plan for Gaza? Nowhere. Nowhere. Not there. Why? Because they can't be trusted, because they can't do the job, because they failed to do the job. Yeah, we can parse out. We know who dropped the buildings. We know whose bombs those were. We know. I just think Donald Trump's statement to the public was so ridiculous that it can't be real. It literally can't be real. It has to be a ridiculous opening gambit to generate dialogue amongst Europe, the Saudi Arabia, and everybody else, for them to come up with an alternative to America committing suicide in Gaza, because that's what it would be. We would lose this war. I know there's a bunch of chest thumpers out there, and look, I'm a Marine. I know for a fact we could go in and we would kill Hamas. It's what we do. We do it better than anybody else in the world, but we will lose a lot of Marines. And I remind people, we killed a lot of Vietnamese. We're pretty good at that too. Killed a lot of Koreans. Hell, we killed a lot of Iraqis. We killed a lot of Afghanis. We lost every one of those wars. Lost every single one of them. And we can roll into Gaza and kill a bunch of Gazans. We're going to lose that war. Why? Because it's an unjust war. Because the military activity doesn't align with a legitimate political outcome. And they have to. They have to align, or else you lose the conflict. War is an extension of politics by other means. So this notion that we're going to go into Gaza and fix this thing. No, we're not. And I think Trump has to know this. I don't think there's a military person in uniform that's telling them, this is a good idea, boss. I'm like, we're on board. I don't think I think they're all saying exactly what I'm saying. We don't want to do this. Don't order us to do this. If you guys remember the history in Iraq, the Marine general, I can't remember his name right now, during Fallujah, when the Blackwater guys got zapped and dragged through and hung up and burned, he went to the president and he said, we got this under control. We have videotape. Special forces are tracking these guys. We're going to get all the guys that did this, bring them in, and we're going to shut this thing down. Do not order us to go into Fallujah. It will be a nightmare. He said, we'll do it. but you won't like the outcome. You won't like what we're going to do. You aren't going to like how we do this. And then the other thing he said is, if you send us into Fallujah, don't stop us. Once you say go, we go. And you know what the president did? Sent him into Fallujah. And a couple of days later, he went, holy shit, the Marines are being Marines. Stop. You can't have this. It was a disaster. That's what will happen in Gaza. I don't know what Trump thinks is going to happen, but the military will say, don't send us in. But if you do send us in, don't stop us. Because once we start, it's going to get ugly really quick and stay ugly until the job's done. In about a weekend, when the bodies are coming in and the video is horrible, and Americans are watching Americans kill innocent civilians and blow things up, and Americans come out bloody and dying, the uproar is going to be crazy, and Trump's going to go, stop. And the military is going to say, we warned you. We told you what's going to happen. And now you're stopping it, and that's the defeat. That's what's going to happen. There will be no. And so I don't believe this is a serious plan. It's not who's going to invest in it? Look at the stupidity of what he said. We're going to go in there and remove all those unexploded ordnance. No, you're not. You have no idea how to even begin that. How do you do rubble removal? Where are you going to take the rubble? You're going to, is this going to be Berlin all over again, where you build a giant, a giant rubble mountain and then put a SIGINT site on top of it? Donald Trump literally has no plan. He doesn't know what he's talking about. And I think this is deliberate. I think he doesn't like Netanyahu. That's the other thing people need to understand. He doesn't like Netanyahu. He's the guy that put out, let the videotape of
Jeffrey Sachs
criticized. Why would Trump do that? Because Trump hates Netanyahu, despises Netanyahu. Trump, this was about jabbing it to Netanyahu and then challenging the Saudis are on the fence. If you're Donald Trump, think about it. No Arab country is here to help you. No Arab country cares about the people of Gaza. I mean, Yemen, apparently, the Houthi do. Lebanon, what are they? Shia, the Shia of Iraq. So the Shia care about the Muslim Brotherhood in Gaza more than the Sunni Arabs do. No Sunni Arab nation is lining up to say, we're with the Palestinians. Even the Palestinians aren't with each other. Abu Mazen is undercutting Hamas every day. He is so jealous that Hamas won. He's so angry that Hamas won. He wanted Hamas destroyed because he's an Israeli tool. The Palestinians are split. The Arab world won't support. And so Trump's basically saying, if you guys don't step up to the plate, this is what's going to happen. It's not going to happen, but he's maybe doing the Richard Nixon madman theory. Who knows? But I don't know. This is just my desperate attempt to try and bring some sort of rational framework around the insanity that we all heard last night.
Larry, I wanted to pass it to you. And there's one, like, what message is being sent to who? There's always this, is he trying to parse out a deal to pressure actors? Well, it's hard to know for me, who these actors would be, given that the proposal completely excluded Palestinians altogether, which you would think that would be number one, who would be part of a deal of what to do about post-genocide Gaza. But then there's also, I wanted to ask you, Larry, about, in my opinion, Israel just lost pretty significantly militarily. And now the United States is saying they're going to go in with an unbelievable kind of posture into Gaza and escort all the Palestinians out. That's what it sounded like to me. So, Larry, your reaction.
Well, first, Trump sort of blew up the settler narrative. This land is our land. God gave this land to me. Nope. Trump's taken part of it over. It's American land now. That's what he was saying. So he was not acknowledging in that the Zionists would have control. He was actually, in a way, sending a pretty bizarre message. And I think Scott's observation about Bibi Netanyahu's body language is accurate. The other thing to remember is this was entirely scripted. Trump was normally Trump's not reading from a note card or reading from a teleprompter. He was reading from a note card. This had been prepared in advance. Who wrote that up? Jared Kushner, for his real estate investment, maybe. But this is part, I chalk this up also to, Trump's showmanship. I'd encourage everybody that's watching now or listening, go Google on YouTube, Donald Trump and Vince McMahon. The time that Trump appeared in the ring at a World Wrestling Federation event and, was breaking chairs over people's heads and, throwing sucker punches. There is also, I'll call it, I don't want to suggest that this is lighthearted entertainment, but Trump was saying some things there that, both simultaneously on some side takes heat off of Netanyahu at home, who's politically, he's made promises to, skip the first phase of the ceasefire and violate the second phase. In sort of a bizarre way, I think what Trump was doing was trying to buy time. Now, so yeah, no, we're going to take Gaza over. We'll resettle it. We'll move all the Palestinians out. And what's Netanyahu going to do? Go back and say Trump's a liar? That's not going to happen. Trump, no, he can't say that. It was sort of an odd way that Trump boxed Netanyahu in. The other thing I noticed was just the contrast between the appearance of Donald Trump, who's 4 years older than Netanyahu. Netanyahu looks like a sick man. He does not look healthy. He's had, Ray McGovern's way older than Bibi Netanyahu and looks far better than Bibi Netanyahu. Bibi Netanyahu would like to look like Ray McGovern. But so there's some health issues there with Netanyahu. So, and then the practical thing, Trump keeps saying, oh, yeah, I've talked to the other Arab nations and they're all on board. And today, Turkey was out saying, hell no, forget that. MBS in Saudi Arabia was going, he learned to speak Russian. He goes, niet means niet. It's not going to happen. And it's only going to happen if there's a Palestinian state. So, I don't know what Trump has up his sleeve. You saw today he walked it back a little bit because it's an idea that's not fleshed out. And as Scott correctly noted, he's not in a position to send U.S. troops in there because that would be a bloodbath. And all of a sudden he's going to be bringing home body bags and greeting them at Dover. He doesn't want that image at all. Maybe I'm jumping ahead, but this was, like I said, this was all scripted. All of his pontification about Iran. Boy, Iran, if you're building that nuke, we're going to get you. Well, we already know that the Ali Khamenei hasn't given them the green light to build a bomb. Until Ali Khamenei says go, it's not going to happen. And on January 17th, they signed a deal with Russia, where Russia's vowing to help in the nuclear industry, but that comes with a clause that's not publicized. That means you don't get to develop a nuke. We're going to work with you. It's going to be peaceful, no nukes. So I think we need to step back and, it's easy to say, Donald Trump's a moron. He's an idiot. I keep going back to the Vince McMahon. He's a showman. He's an entertainer in his own little world, and it's worked for him so far. And I think he's, in some aspects, what he said at that podium actually ends up limiting what Bibi Netanyahu can do going forward, not starting a new war.
Ray, what do you think about this? Because, on the one hand, I definitely hear that and could conceive that this plan is absolutely ridiculous and cannot be implemented without disaster for the United States. But on the other hand, we've seen the United States for so long jump into disasters with regard to its assistance to Israel. And while Donald Trump had begun his administration maybe moving away from that with the implementation of the ceasefire, there's still questions about, will actually the United States go for this? Ray, what is your assessment?
I think one needs to be aware of the background of all of this and the fact that Israel has been leading the U.S. into all manner of catastrophes. It's very clear now that they were the principal element in persuading the Bush-Cheney administration and the intelligence community to falsify enough information to justify the attack on Iraq. Now, Scott mentioned Fallujah. What many people don't remember is that was a direct result of the killing of a paraplegic, blind sheikh named Yassin, the spiritual leader of Hamas in Gaza in March 2004. He was killed by an Israeli helicopter, and Sharon was known to have been behind that. Okay, the spiritual leader of Hamas. So, why is that relevant? Well, it was just 10 days later that those contractors, what was their name? The kind of contractors we had there.
It was Blackwater, wasn't it?
The Blackwater guys, yeah. There were 4 or 5 of them, and they misread the map and they made the wrong turn, and they ended up in the hands of people who really feel serious about killing the spiritual leader of Hamas. And you know what happened to them? I don't defend that at all, okay? But that was at the bottom of it. And when those people dragged those Blackwater types through those streets, on the panels of the trucks that they used was Yassin Revenge Brigades. Okay, now Scott mentioned what the Marines were ordered to do against Fallujah. His account, as usual, is extremely accurate. The Marine general later complained privately that this was really terrible and that countermanding this thing. He lost several Marines. Marine commanders worth their salt don't like that, okay? But what happened? Well, actually, how'd he end up? He became the commandant of the Marine Corps. So that too is kind of unpleasant, because if you keep your mouth shut in public, then you become promoted, not demoted. Now, as far as my God, Trump is concerned, you know what the meaning of the word sociopath is? Okay, that's what we have here: a person who has no empathy, no feeling for anyone else. Okay, and he's standing right next to a fellow sociopath. Okay, and not only that, a racist. Now, I was hoping that when Trump made that eloquent presentation about what happened to Gaza, all they know is beyond repair, terrible. And then he was, and that guy did it. you know, that was McGovern dreaming. You know, he didn't say that guy did it. Okay, so what we have here is a real complicated situation where I think Trump has got what the Germans call Wahnsinn, okay? It means it's worse than verrückt. It's kind of a delusion of grandeur, a feeling of omnipotence, and that he can do whatever the hell he wants, all right? And nobody's going to stop it. I'm less encouraged at the prospect that our Congress or anyone else in our government can stop this. I wish I had more confidence, but I don't. And I know very well what happened in early 1933 in Berlin. And that was when people could not find their voice. There was no moral leadership. Not the Catholics, not the Lutheran bishops could say a damn word, okay? And what happened, of course, is described by one person who was there, a lawyer training to be a judge. He said there was sheepish submissiveness. Hitler didn't have anywhere near a majority. What happened? The Social Democrats caved. The Christian Center Party caved. And before you knew it, everybody was too afraid to do a damn thing about what was happening to the Jews. That's history, folks. It's not so long ago. I was alive during those years. I never thought that our country would be responsible not only for genocide, but for enabling a psychopath like Netanyahu to try to get away with what he wants to get away with. I'm encouraged in a sense to hear Scott and Larry say he's not really going to get away with it because the cards are stacked against him. Hamas is not going to be a shrinking violet. So those are my thoughts. I just feel really bad about the fact that we, this is on us. If we're a democracy, cry the beloved country, for God's sake. That was a novel about South Africa, okay? And we have Bishop Tutu telling us, look, you can't remain neutral when this kind of thing is going on. Remaining neutral is being on the side of the oppressor. If the elephant has his foot on a little mouse in the jungle, the mouse does not very much appreciate it if you remain neutral. And so I just hope that there's more spine, there's more moral fiber in the American public that can stand up against this than there was in Germany in early 1933.